Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today's video we are going to be taking a look at Havok. Now my Havok is only a rank 3 5-star, I think dupe 20, so he's not ranked all the way up there, but still, first things first, we're going to check out his damage output in Realm of Legends. Now we have class advantage against this Winter Soldier, therefore take every single number you see here with a bit of grain of salt. It's added like 20% on top of it because of class advantage. But basically the way Havok works is with his plasma charges. Over time he gains his plasma charges. He also has several other abilities that help him gain them quicker, and synergies such as every time you parry you gain a charge. His signature ability lets you gain charges quicker as well, and that's basically the base of character. You gain plasma charges. When you get to 10 you start placing like plasma over buildup debuffs on opponent, and they can go up to 11. As soon as they reach 11 they detonate, dealing X amount of damage to opponent, unless you kind of somehow purify, or they purify the plasma buildup themselves. They take basically a lot more damage, so that is the main thing. Now your heavy attack has thermal feedback. That damage is dependent on how much plasma buildup you have on opponent, so you can basically place something similar like Omega Red-esque heavy debuff on opponent that does damage over time based on how many plasma buildups you have on opponent. And lastly, you can, whenever you throw heavy attack, you convert 2 of your plasma charges into a prowess buff that increases your special damage by 10%, and then you ideally drop a massive level 3 that's going to do an absolute ton of damage, and it will also detonate all the plasma buildup on opponent that will deal additional chunk of damage to opponent. Now we see that we are 77 hits in, and this Winter Soldier is already at 37%. So we can definitely tell that Havok does in fact have a really good damage output, largely delivered in huge bursts via his level 3, and he has damage over time debuff, thermal feedback, which isn't bad at all if you think about it. 1000 per tick and 1000 something if you have decent amount of plasma buildups on opponent is not a bad debuff to have whatsoever. And yeah, overall main kind of specials to note is that special 2 can hit really hard, and special 1, if you want to use it, it's gonna basically give you kind of super fast plasma charge gaining mechanic. So you can use your level 1 in order to gain your plasma charges quicker, but typically for most part you just kind of want to get your level 3 and detonate whatever plasma you have on opponent to deal massive damage. Now we did have a small slip up over there, however we do finish this out with a level 2, so 113 hits, Winter Soldier goes down. Definitely not a bad result for a rank 3 5-star. Next we're taking a look at 4-star 330 in Act 5, Chapter 4, Quest 6. So this is the last quest of Act 5. And we're going to be taking a look at something more specific in regarding Havok, and that is the fact that his medium attacks and first hit of heavy attack in fact deal energy damage and make no contact with the opponent. Therefore he is pretty much perfect, also bypassing Korg and Electro and a lot of stuff like that. Now he doesn't do it as effective as, let's say, Omega Red or Namor or a few other champions, but just that fact that his medium attacks and heavy attack hit does not make contact with opponent does make sure that he is a really viable counter to all these pesky Korgs and Electros. And now you can see that this is a 330 4-star in Act 5, and to close out the fight he just had to get to 1 level 3, drop it, 27 hits, and the fight is over. So definitely this boy can punch like a madman. Now it can be taking a look at Act 6, and this Falcon is on buffet node. Now what is interesting with Havok for buffet nodes is the fact that his plasma buildups are actually considered as debuffs. Therefore, in conjunction with Despair Mastery, we can completely shut down any kind of healing. But we chose this fight in Act 6, Chapter 2, Quest number 2 with Mr. Sinister Boss, kind of on purpose, because this quest basically requires you to run an Incinerate immune champion. If you happen to hit too hard, you would receive massive Incinerate buff. However, Havok is fully Incinerate immune, and he also has increased energy resistance. And that makes him pretty much perfect when it comes to dealing with a lot of newer stuff in the content, like Freezer Burn seems to be like new version of Biohazard, and we just how more flat out, like Incinerate nodes and Incinerate lanes. And in this month's Uncollected, we have Sunspot Boss, which pretty much requires you to be Incinerate immune. And Havok, with his huge damage output and Incinerate immunity, and all his tricks and twerks, is definitely a really good option when it comes to dealing with any content where you need Incinerate immune champions. Now, I chose to showcase this fight against Black Panther, who has Sharpened Claws on him. And what Sharpened Claws do is they place a small bleed on you whenever opponent makes contact with you, even if you happen to parry them. However, Havok also places a plasma buildup on opponent whenever a bleed debuff is inflicted on him. That's why, since I'm running suicides and I'm starting the fight with double edge bleed, you can see that they always have at least one plasma buildup on them at the start of the fight. And in this case, basically every time we parry, we are placing 5 more plasma buildups, which always makes for a good time, some extra damage, and it is something I don't think that too many people kind of keep in mind. And therefore, whenever you face Havok, because as we all know, he's a really tough defender in Alliance War, do stay away from champs that do critical hits, because that will build his plasma charges quicker. And do stay away from bleeder champions as well, because you're gonna get a lot of those plasma buildups on you. So I just figured I'd point that out, since I'm not too sure if many people are actually aware that he also is really great against any kind of bleed effects, and especially that will hurt you when you're fighting against him. And lastly, this fight is here also to demonstrate that even though Havok has a fairly dodgy relationship with champions that have active armor up buffs, just because you can't really detonate your plasmas, you can largely still play around it just by timing your detonations kind of when their armor up buffs expire. And now, another negative of Havok is whenever he gets power drained, he loses all of his plasma charges. That is typically one of the easier ways how to counter him. Bring a power drain champion, power drain him as often as possible, and you're not gonna have to worry about detonations. However, when you are using Havok yourself, and when you are facing champions that do power burn, or in this case just a global node, this is Power Struggle in 615, you can be creative and get around that. So in this case, we are in Act 6, Chapter 1, Quest 5, facing off against Power Struggle node, which should be an absolute horrible time for Havok, because we don't have access to our primary damage output, which is in our level 3, and we also lose all our plasma charges whenever opponent throws a special attack, because we lose our power. However, Havok can still get around things like that, and it's one of those champions where you can get creative playing. So in this case, we are going to be relying on our heavy attack and thermal feedback. We're going to be stalling a bit initially to build up some plasma charges. We're going to parry him a bunch to get extra plasma charges, and then basically just going to keep the plasma over buildup debuffs on opponent and spam our heavy attacks, which are gonna place thermal feedback on opponent that does a nice damage over time debuff. Also, because they are counted as debuffs, it completely shuts down regeneration effects, as we just saw. He hit his arc overload, nothing happened, and we close the fight out relatively easily in 58 hits with a rank 3 5-star in Act 6. I want to emphasize again, it's a rank 3 5-star in endgame content, and he still does all of these fights in a really good amount of time and hits. Now, lastly, we're going to have a couple of fights in Ultron's Assault variant using Havok in Chapter 1, because that's the mutant chapter. So once again, we're taking in a rank 3 in variant to see how he does. And we're facing off against Buffet node. So as I mentioned earlier, his plasma buildups are considered as an actual debuff. Therefore, it works with Despair Mastery. And that means we can pretty much bypass Buffet as soon as we build up some plasma charges. So our game plan here is pretty much simple. We want to build out our plasma charges. We want some thermal feedback on opponent. We want to use some heavy attacks to gain some prowess charges to increase our special 3 damage. As you can see, we have 7 debuffs on opponent. Her regen is irrelevant. She can't regenerate anything at this point. And here we just want to wait a bit till we get a few more plasma charges and drop a massive level 3 on this X23 to pretty much close out the fight with a single level 3. So we are at 7 plasma charges, just need to get a couple more, 8. I believe we're gonna try and get to 10, because that's the perfect amount. However, you can always detonate them early as well and still deal a really good amount of damage. So there we go, we're shooting off for level 3. She's at 64% initially at the beginning of this level 3, and she is dead when we are over with it. So that did all of her remaining health. 34 hits, variant fight done with a rank 3 Havok. Super easy. Now next opponent here is Mephisto. Now Mephisto is really annoying in this variant just because of his incinerate damage, but as we discussed earlier, Havok is absolutely immune to incinerate, therefore we have absolutely nothing to worry about in this fight, and we just need to kind of stick to our game plan. Now I think I will make a kind of strategical error in this fight, because I don't think I should have pushed to level 3, because his ability to prevent death with his souls and regen, but still, we're just gonna see how well Havok can simply deal with this Mephisto. Also, we have 9 plasma build-up, so we're able to negate buffet node. And yeah, that is pretty much my main point of kind of making this video, that I think majority of people look at Havok as a great defender, good prestige champion, and somebody that has a massive level 3 damage. But he is actually fairly versatile character with his incinerate immunity, with his ability to bypass damage from Korg and Electro, with his ability to stack insane amount of debuffs on opponent really quickly, therefore working with Despair, being able to do distract and different nodes like that. And yeah, there's always a damage that does come in handy, but depending on kind of like what you need to get out of your Havok, you can play him in several different ways, relying on different methods, via your heavy attacks, via building plasmas and just detonating them. He is a versatile champion. I think he is justly ranked as one of the 5 best mutant champions, and I definitely think he possibly still might be underutilized, because that damage output with incinerate immunity, with the versatility, is definitely kind of top mark champion worthy. So last fight in this video is going to be against Kingroot, and there we are going to take a look at another interesting mechanic where Havok will absolutely shine, and that is a simple fact that while he has Furies on him, he can shrug off any debuff placed on him. However, when plasma build-up charges are purified, they deal additional damage that they normally would, and that makes any matchup where opponents have ability to shrug up debuffs really kind of favorable for Havok, just because he's going to be dealing quite a bit of extra damage throughout the fight. Now we did make a small slip up there, however we did get that permanent armor break. That means we're going to be constantly healing throughout this fight, and I'm definitely not worried about my health. Here we just need to stick to our game plan, throw some level 3s, let him take some extra damage meanwhile from shrugging off the plasma buildups, and we're gonna have an absolutely fantastic time. So we're throwing a couple of heavy attacks just to get those prowess built up to gain that extra damage on our level 3. Then we're gonna wait a bit for a few more plasma charges to build up, and that is going to be our game plan. So I will leave the fight running in background, so you guys can see how well he can deal with this Kingroot, with buffet node, and what kind of damage he can put out. But as I am doing so, I'm gonna kind of try and summarize Havok in my opinion. Also, please do note that I definitely do not consider myself to be some sort of Havok expert. I do not have vast amount of experience with him, and this is kind of like my video from what I have seen over the month from facing Havok, and also what I have tested to date. But yeah, when it comes to Havok, so first things first, great prestige, absolutely amazing defender. Lots of attack utility via ways he deals damage to opponent, via its heavy attacks or level 3s, just the fact that he makes no contact attacks, and a lot of his stuff has to do with energy attacks. He has a lot of many kind of quirky things where you can alternate your playstyle and adapt and use him super effectively. So I do believe he's well worthy of like a rank 5. He's definitely in top 5 best mutant champions in the game. Do I think he's better than Omega or Domino? Probably not, no. But is he kind of like close enough to them to still be a really great rank up choice? 100%. He's an amazing champion. He can do some amazing stuff in the game. He can put out some incredible numbers on his level 3, and he's also kind of fairly easy to play. But that will be me done for today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, do not forget to hit that like button, to hit that sub button, to share it with your friends, share it with your alliance mates. Perhaps you found out something new about Havok, perhaps I missed out something. In that case, leave a comment in comment section below and correct me. I don't know everything either, but yeah, thanks for watching guys, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.